If you take it, we take every single base of the Americans from Aviano to Ramstein, from Romania to all the other military bases will be confiscated and you will lose it.
You serious?
Well, I think it is certainly long past time for America to start questioning the future of our political relationship with Western Europe, because I think it's worth noting what we've basically seen from the globalist leaders of our so-called NATO allies ever since the Venezuela raid has been nonstop virtue signaling against us. They're expressing all these concerns over international law, but really what they're trying to say is they didn't support what we did and they're not standing firm by our side, which is perfectly fine. Those countries are entitled to their opinions. But after all, if we're going to be in a highly binding strategic defense alliance with one another, I think it is actually a relevant question whether our strategic interests actually align in the first place. Like, that's an important question we're going to address in this video. But that temperature has now been turned up to 100 in recent days after President Trump announced he will be renewing the push for America to annex Greenland. And essentially, this has triggered a full-blown meltdown from the UK and EU. We have Keir Starmer claiming he's not going to allow that to happen, as if he has any authority over this matter. We even have unhinged members of the government over in Denmark actually threatening America on national TV. And on one hand, this is hilarious to watch, right? Seriously, these people are going to stop us, the very European nations who cannot even build their own functional military without US support. Suddenly, now that America has once again reestablished itself, or some would argue we never left, right, as second to none, right, the top undisputed military superpower of the world, look how we just rolled over a country that was supposed to be actually difficult for us in the span of about 2 hours and a couple of minutes. Suddenly now they're going to step in. That's hilarious. But at the same time, I think on a deeper level, we do actually have to start asking these questions because, look, on one hand, I think that America and Europe will always have a close relationship when it comes to cultural and historical heritage. Truly, I am rooting for the patriots of those nations to take back what is theirs. And, you know, we share a lot of the same problems. And so it's not an issue of resentment. Just 100% practically speaking, if America's going one way and all the other NATO countries are going another way politically, then can NATO still survive into the future? And at what point does it start to resemble the very entangling alliances that George Washington warned us about, right? Because don't get me wrong, during the Cold War, NATO made perfect sense. But going into the future, you're starting to see this little divergence of interest, right? The European Union, for instance, firmly believes that Russia is their top enemy. As a matter of fact, they actively tried to sabotage our peace attempts earlier last year that we tried to make in that war. Simultaneously, America believes its top threat is China, and we're not really seeing strong support there from the EU, right? The EU is more like, we're fine with China, we're more anti-Russia. Okay, I think Emmanuel Macron actually once was even asked, would you defend America if it went to war with China over Taiwan? And he basically said no. And so it's like, okay, if we're going to go our own separate ways, then maybe some of this stuff is overdue. And hopefully to both Americans, but heck, maybe even Europeans, this moment is sort of a wake-up call. I think the NATO alliance overall is sort of an outdated institution that may be on its last legs. And although on the surface that might sound like a bad thing because it's like, oh, we have less allies, long-term ultimately, right? My belief is, and what I want America to look like, is a country that defends its own interests and its own interests alone, right? I don't want to be caught up in whatever Canada wants or the European Union wants or the UK wants. If our interests align, sure. But you're kind of seeing through this new Neo-Monroe doctrine, that's what basically Trump is trying to advocate for. America is going to act in her own interests, and we don't care what other people think about it. So, you know, if that's going to be the case, is an alliance like NATO still going to make sense? These are the questions we have to answer. But that said, guys, in today's video, I want to run you through this whole Greenland Chronicle because apparently we have a joint statement issued by many different world leaders of the European Union saying that, oh, Greenland belongs to its people. It's for Denmark and the United States should not be allowed to have it and blah, blah, blah. Don't you know about the NATO Charter? Don't you know about the UN? And we're basically sitting here saying, really? you're going to do this. But let's get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. And if you've not heard as of late, as you could expect, right, Trump is basically asserting American dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Take a listen after we rolled over Venezuela, what he wants out of Greenland.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true.
Sir,
they thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a claim to Greenland? What would the justification?
Oh, I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it, and they know that.
It has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out. The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
Okay, well, a couple of points I would like to make on that. First and foremost, as funny and cool as it is, right, the Don Roe doctrine, as much as it gets memed and made fun of, in all seriousness, the substance of what Trump is arguing as it pertains to Greenland is perfectly logically sound. It's actually true, right? The arms race of the 21st century will be for mainly rare earth minerals and control over the Arctic region. And newsflash, right? America's kind of dangerously behind in those regards at the moment. Okay, Russia, as you can probably tell, has way easier access to the Arctic than we do, but Greenland there would be the ultimate equalizer. And yes, I mean, objectively, as Trump points out, obviously America would like to have the rare earth and oil and natural gas that Greenland has, but especially we don't want that to be falling in the hands of our adversaries either. Territorially speaking, by the way, America did actually occupy Greenland during World War II. I have no idea why we give it back. That was a huge strategic mistake. I mean, just look at even back then, the context of 1945, the Soviet Union expanded its territory by huge amounts, right? Basically took over all of Eastern Europe. And as it pertains to us, not only do we give back the Philippines and all this stuff, okay, we don't even take Greenland, which even back then was very strategically significant. So yes, I fully support the push. And for people who ask, like, why does it really matter? Natural resources. That's the reason it really matters. And yes, I mean, just in terms of NATO and in terms of America's position in the Western Hemisphere and as the global superpower, it is something we should have. It's not something, frankly, that Denmark deserves to have, or as Trump argues, right, they are in any way seeming to show to us or show to the rest of the world that they can adequately be the Arctic power. Obviously, they're freaking Denmark, right? That's able to stand up to, say, Russia and China. So, that's kind of what my argument on that would be. But that said, I now want you to take a listen to the response here by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, because after this absolute fool has just spent an entire year getting humiliated time after time, here is him trying to basically stand up and threaten the United States over over, hey, you better not do it. Okay.
United States back off from Greenland?
Well, the future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark only. And we're very clear about that. Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO, and it's very important that we stand by our ally.
Well, first of all, what a pathetic clown and loser this guy is. I mean, seriously, Keir Starmer, he's going to stand up and stop us? Yeah, we're real scared. And it's, of course, highly ironic and hilarious for the leader of Great Britain to be lecturing us on territorial sovereignty. I mean, we learn from the best to ever do it. What can we say? Okay, as it pertains to what you might call a little bit of imperialism. But that said, again, all jokes aside, I want to address the substance of what he's saying, because this is basically the same argument that the EU made. Hey, you know, Denmark is our ally. Denmark is in NATO. For what purpose does America need to annex Greenland? Because you basically can already use it, right? We're all standing together. We're all allied nations. And at the end of the day, you know, basically what they said here, this is what the EU wrote to us, right? NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority and European allies are stepping up. Oh, really? You're stepping up. Oh, yeah. You know, you guys just do a fantastic job, you know, clearly. We and many other allies have increased our presence, activities, and investments to keep the Arctic safe and deter adversaries. The Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO. So, right, this is the argument. Oh, we're all part of NATO. What do you need it for? Except, as I would like to point out, especially, actually, let's directly right now address the UK. Currently, the U.S. is looking to seize a Venezuelan oil tanker that is parked, as you can see, just in the Arctic, first of all, right? So you want an illustration right now of why we need Greenland, and frankly, we cannot trust Denmark or our so-called NATO allies to do it for us. Here you see right now, right? Venezuelan oil tanker right next to the UK. As you could expect, not only is the UK not doing anything about it, but they're kind of giving us a hard time because we want to blockade the sanctioned oil tanker, right? By the way, let me just ask the question too. Where do you think this oil is going? Context is important here, right? Why is a Venezuelan oil tanker all the way this far north in the Arctic Ocean? I wonder what country on the other side that they might be headed to. But take a listen. We'll explain that in a second.
Another development today is that President Trump is looking to seize this Venezuelan oil tanker, which is currently about 500 miles off the coast of Ireland. US forces are using the UK as a base to launch this raid from, and gunships have landed at RAF Fairford over the weekend. It's a diplomatic nightmare for Sir Keir, the US using the UK as a base to do something that Starmer's Human Rights Brigade probably disagree with.
Yeah, that's right. So as we speak, here we have a Venezuelan oil tanker off the coast of the UK. And while sure, it's nice that I guess the British are at least allowing us to use their military bases, it's very important to point out they are doing nothing about it, right? They're not coming to our aid whatsoever. Why doesn't the British Navy, Royal Navy, Mighty Navy, by the way, why don't they just handle this on our behalf if we're supposed to be the shared NATO allies? Well, you might respond by saying, okay, but Venezuela's not their fight, it's our fight, except this is a very important detail. Why is a Venezuelan oil tanker in the Arctic? Let me let you in on a little secret here, right? Guess where it's going? It's going to Russia, which highlights a great hypocrisy and irony about all of this. Keir Starmer, alongside all the EU leaders, have spent the past several years constantly virtue signaling about Vladimir Putin, right? We need to do 100% to fight Putin, continue the war forever. He's our greatest enemy. He's a dictator. And yet, now that America did what it did in Venezuela, and even arguably Iran, I guess to a smaller degree, but really Venezuela, that we actually dealt a major geopolitical blow, not just to China, but also to Russia, suddenly these cowards get cold feet. Why is that? Because it turns out they like to talk a lot more about Russia than they do actually take action, which is what the United States is currently doing as we speak. The European Union, for instance, despite all the virtue signaling they did about us saying we're abandoning Ukraine, currently spends more on Russian oil and gas than they do financial aid to Ukraine. Yet they're trying to come to us and claim that they're somehow reliable allies. Do you see the point that I'm making about why America needs Greenland, because we cannot trust these other countries to do it for us? Well, let me let you in on some more information here. Breaking news, UK officials are now holding talks with other European allies on whether to intervene in the pursuit of a Russian oil tanker fleeing Venezuela. Keep in mind, these are the supposedly anti-Russia Europeans. They're allegedly much more anti-Russia than we are, right? Trump is friendly with Vladimir Putin. Okay, shouldn't this be a no-brainer? Oh, but here's the reason why. The UK, despite all Keir Starmer's tough talk about Ukraine, fears support for a U.S. operation to seize the oil tanker near UK waters could spark retaliation from Vladimir Putin. Oh, suddenly now you're scared of that. I thought we're all fighting Putin, are we not? Oh, wow, it's kind of interesting how that works. He gets cold feet. There are similar fears that inaction would widen a rift between Europe and Donald Trump, and so basically the UK, as we speak, is in a diplomatic mess. Okay, so again, are you seeing the behavior? I can now, like watching this right now, imagine a future situation like this in the Arctic, right? Maybe it's not an oil tanker next time. Maybe it's actually naval ships, battleships, whatever, that are being sent by, say, China or Russia. And we try to say, hey, Greenland, Denmark, help us out here. We need your assistance. And they, no, we don't want. They're not reliable allies. That's the entire point. They're actually proving it right now through the course of this Venezuela thing, which again further proves why Greenland needs to be ours. I hope the point I'm making there makes sense, right? They're actually just vindicating us on this issue. But that said, of course, we have, more meltdown here. You have EU officials, for example, saying that if you take Greenland, then we're going to seize all U.S. bases in Europe, to which I say, I'd like to see them try. That's very funny.
If you take it, we take every single base of the Americans from Aviano to Ramstein, from Romania to all the other military bases will be confiscated and you will lose it. And the whole position of American power since World War II, if you take Greenland, you have to leave. It's very simple, Mrs. Miller. This is the leverage we have. You need these bases for global power protection. You won't have it. And we can defend ourselves very well, and we will do that without the US nuclear shield, without the US troops in Europe, without the American bases. We will simply run these bases ourselves, and we run your boys home into Chicago and Ohio. And goodbye. If you go extreme, we go extreme as well. Be sure about it.
Yeah, we're so scared of you, right, Mr. Tough Guy? Hey, did you remember to recycle today? Did you remember to check your CO2 emissions and make sure 80% of your taxes are going to, migrants who are constantly murdering your citizens and raping your woman? Or, are you too busy, making empty threats to the United States? I would like to again point out, how can we take you seriously when you're proving all you do is talk, okay? You don't just talk at us. You also talk at Russia. And then suddenly now you're getting cold feet on Russia. Oh, maybe that might go too far. I thought you're Mr. Tough Guy. I heard you speak exactly like this towards Vladimir Putin. And what did the EU respond by doing? Oh, we're going to keep on buying their oil and making our economy reliant on Russia. And then secondly, the moment America says, hey, let's do something kind of aggressive against Russia over in the Arctic Ocean, right? You're saying, wait, that might be a step too far. Yap. That's all they do. We have the Danish Prime Minister, by the way, saying that if Donald Trump attacks Greenland, it will be the end of NATO, to which I say, for the reasons we highlighted, maybe that's kind of overdue. Maybe it might be time for that. But even then, I don't think that will necessarily be the case. You know why? Because all they do is talk. Huh? Oh, we can defend ourselves. We have our own militaries. That's really funny. That's just hilarious. Nobody believes this, okay? And lastly, okay, let's just listen to this guy from the EU Parliament over in Denmark, because it's a pretty comical interview he just had on CNN as well. So here's another big tough guy.
Denmark.
So tonight, and I think that bringing up that Treaty of the Virgin Islands is fascinating, and I thank you for that. Trump is mocking Denmark's efforts on Greenland security. Here's something specific derogatory that he said. Let me play this.
You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
One more dog sled. And then Katie Miller, who obviously is married to Stephen Miller, whom I just played to you, posted that map of Greenland on social media in the colors of the American flag right after the Venezuela military operation. And the word she wrote was soon. So, when Trump makes a comment like they added one more dog sled and they thought that was a great idea, and she posts that picture, obviously this is insulting. But I guess the real question, Anders, is what can Denmark do about it?
Nothing.
We already decided to ramp up military spending in the Arctic region significantly, many billions of Danish crowns. But let's be frank, what have Americans done? They have closed over 30 bases in Greenland because they didn't find it military significant to be there, to the point where there is only one American base left. So if Trump thinks that a Danish security in Greenland is ridiculous, it just goes to the point that America doesn't care about the Arctic region because they decided unilaterally to draw back from Greenland to the point where their presence in Greenland is almost non-existent.
Okay. First of all, those decisions were not made by the Trump administration. And secondly, really, you're ramping up funding. Oh, yeah, because when Europeans just fund things and create more bureaucracies and just raise their taxes, they're so effective at it, right? First of all, don't you know, Denmark is increasing security funding. As Trump points out, you know the point he's making there? It's nothing compared to what the United States can do. Okay, yeah, you're right. It is a joke. Yeah, the Danish military. Oh, wow. Everyone's so terrified of them, right? People have not been terrified of Denmark since, I don't know, maybe some European wars in, say, the 1700s. Okay, that is hilarious. And I'm just going to ask it one more time. Buddy, did you see what the U.S. military just did in Venezuela? You mean to tell me that increasing Danish security funding is going to be able to rival that? No, Trump's entire point is that you guys fully know, okay, you're not in the same league as us. What we're asking basically is, look, step aside, give it to us, because if you really care about the NATO alliance, if you really want to keep Russia and China out of the Arctic, then it needs to be ours, okay? And here they are just basically responding with unseriousness. It's just a joke, right? I mean, at the end of the day, frankly, I could almost argue it's all ego. Because Denmark really, you know, there's no really real reason they have Greenland in the modern day. It's kind of just, they're kind of just holding on to it because they can. Sure, maybe they want control over the oil or something, but they're kind of just being childish, frankly, about this at the end of the day. So, but anyways, there you have it, right? So that said, I think it raises some important questions as to, first of all, can we really trust NATO? Can we really trust these European countries? Do they really have our interests at heart? And of course, secondly, it's very hilarious to see them sit around and pretend to threaten us. If I were to guess, in the end, I think long term, it might not even happen under Trump's presidency, but one day Greenland will likely become American territory. That's basically an inevitability when you take a look at, you know, just the way geopolitics is trending. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on it, guys, in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.